Lindsey Graham went to the hearing for Ketanji Brown Jackson. She, of course, is trying to fill the Stephen Breyer Supreme Court vacancy, and she's being pelted with questions from Democrats and Republicans. Of course, the Republican ones are very harsh, and the Democratic ones are very lenient. That's usually the way these things go, depending on who is nominating the potential justice. So Lindsey here has a line of questioning on Guantanamo Bay and on whether or not Ketanji Brown Jackson views herself as a activist judge. This is the phrasing usually from Republicans, is that any Democratic appointed judge or justice is activist, meaning they don't want to interpret the law as it was written. They want to make it up to fit with their liberal ideology. And of course, they think that the conservatives are strict constitutionalists who go by the letter of the law, and that's it. This is their framing. Now, of course, that's nonsense. You could be a quote-unquote activist judge if you lean left or lean right. The entire Lochner era was categorized by right-wing justices who were judicial activists, who, imposed their own ideology on their decisions and didn't go by the letter of the law. So what's interesting here is Lindsey Graham ends up losing his temper, not really at Ketanji Brown Jackson, but more at Dick Durbin, a Democratic senator. And he starts raising his voice. He gets all dramatic. He throws a little tantrum, and then he storms out. So, but look at the issue he gets annoyed over. We'll watch, and then I'll come back and break down why he's so immensely incorrect.
You wouldn't say that you're an activist judge.
I would not say that.
Okay. So we'll have 20 minutes more later on, but here's what I would say. That every group that wants to pack the court, that believes this court is a bunch of right-wing nuts that are going to destroy America, that consider the Constitution trash, all wanted you picked. And this is all I can say, is the fact that so many of these left-wing radical groups that would destroy the law as we know it declared war on Michelle Childs and supported you is problematic for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Graham. Let me mention a few points here. Congressman Jim Clyburn was a strong supporter of Michelle Childs, and now I believe he is publicly supporting your nomination. And Michelle Childs has been nominated by President Biden to be a circuit judge, and she will be considered by this committee as quickly as possible. On the issue of Guantanamo, there are currently 39 Guantanamo detainees remaining. The annual budget for Guantanamo is $540 million per year, which means each of these detainees is being held at the expense of $12 or $13 million per year. If they would be incarcerated at Florence, Colorado, the Supermax prison, federal prison, the amount would be dramatically less. Since 9/11, nearly 1,000 convicted in the United States on terrorism charges. Since 2009, with the beginning of the Obama administration, the recidivism rate of Guantanamo detainees released is 5%.
Mr. Chairman, according to the Director of National Intelligence, is 31%. Somebody is wrong here. If you're going to talk about what I said, I'm going to respond to what you said. If we close Gitmo and move them to Colorado, do you support indefinite detention under the law of war for these detainees?
I would just say I'm giving the facts. And
the answer is no.
I want to make sure that it's clear. The 31% you referred to goes back to the year 2009? 2000.
What does it matter when it goes back to? We had them and they got loose and they started killing people.
Well, I could just say that...
if you're one of the people killed in 2005, does it matter to you when we release them?
Suggest that a president of your own party released them in...
I'm suggesting the system has failed miserably, and advocates to change this system, like she was advocating, would destroy our ability to protect this country. We're at war. We're not fighting a crime. This is not some passage of time event. As long as they're dangerous, I hope they all die in jail if they're going to go back and kill Americans. It won't bother me one bit if 39 of them die in prison. That's a better outcome than letting them go. And if it costs $500 million to keep them in jail, keep them in jail, because they're going to go back to the fight. Look at the friggin' Afghan government. It's made up of former detainees at Gitmo. This whole thing by the left about this war ain't working.
Let me also note that Larry Thompson, who served as Deputy Attorney General under President George W. Bush, Oren Kerr.
I like how Durbin just went back to like being very monotone and reading something after Lindsey Graham throws a tantrum and storms out. So first of all, let me say why I think Lindsey Graham is doing this. The reason he did this is because he went viral during the Brett Kavanaugh hearing when he started screaming and yelling and getting animated and being dramatic. And a lot of people on the right viewed what he did there as like righteous indignation, standing up for what is correct. And so he had huge fundraising after that. He got more love from right-wing media than he had ever gotten previously when he did that. So I think it on some level, he's trying to recreate that by being dramatic, being animated, yelling. So I think that's definitely in the back of his mind, if not on the front of his mind. So I think that's why he's doing it. Now, in terms of the substance, this actually infuriates me. So Ketanji Brown Jackson represented some of the people at Gitmo. And everybody needs to understand is Guantanamo Bay and indefinite detention and suspension of due process rights and habeas corpus. That is such a gigantic stain on this country because it is essentially doing the least American thing you could do and pretending it's the most American thing you can do. It is rank authoritarianism. And Lindsey Graham is saying his position is keep Guantanamo Bay open. Don't release anybody from Guantanamo Bay. You should have never released anybody from Guantanamo Bay. Indefinite detention is great. And it should be indefinite in Guantanamo. You shouldn't even have them in U.S. supermax prisons. And forget due process because it's a war, and these are the laws of war. And so people's rights, it's a stupid conversation to have during war. We need to protect ourselves first and foremost. I care about security. And that's my perspective on it. So that's his take. That's his take. Now, the problem with that perspective, and I'm proud that on this show, we've documented this over the years. I've been doing this show full time since like 2012, but even going back to when I first started doing videos just for fun. One of my very first videos was about Guantanamo Bay detainees because many of them were totally innocent. They never did anything wrong. So Murat Kurnaz is the first one that comes to mind. This guy was, I believe, a German citizen who was either in Afghanistan or Pakistan. He was rounded up and then shipped to Guantanamo Bay. Now, The Guardian had done a story years later where we learned that the Bush administration cut a deal with warlords in Afghanistan and Pakistan and said to them, look, we were just attacked on 9/11. We know Al-Qaeda did it. We know that they're terrorists. So what we want you guys to do is send us Al-Qaeda operatives. And so we cut a deal with warlords in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And they got, I don't know if it was monetary rewards or weapons or whatever, or both. But they went around. You're not going to be surprised to hear this. Turns out warlords in Afghanistan and Pakistan are not the most trustworthy people. So they went around and rounded up all of their political enemies and shipped them to the U.S. And then we put them in Guantanamo Bay, locked them up, and threw away the key. Now, there was no due process. It was indefinite detention. So they were just stuck there for years and years and years and years and years. And they were innocent. They didn't do anything wrong. Now, I'm sure there are some people at Guantanamo who were or are, affiliated with Al-Qaeda or ISIS, or it was before ISIS existed, but are jihadists. I'm sure of it. But, guys, this is why you have due process. This is why you have a system in place. This is why everybody gets their day in court. Because if indeed somebody is guilty, you prove it. You prove it in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt, and then you get to lock them up. But Lindsey Graham says, throw it away. Throw away the whole American system. Throw away due process. The system is too feeble and brittle to deal with this. So let's just be authoritarians and act like dictators and lock people up and throw away the key, and that's the end of it. And so now he's getting all animated, basically saying, like, you should be in favor of locking these people up indefinitely. No, the real problem here was the original sin of ever locking them up indefinitely and never giving anybody their day in court. That was the real original sin. The real original sin was the conception of the idea of the Bush administration, Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, Paul Wolfowitz, all of them, their idea of like, let's become the devil that we're trying to avoid. The U.S. can't go around the world and say, we're fighting for freedom and democracy and justice, and then throw away our own justice system here at home. Because then you're the world's biggest hypocrites and you don't believe in the ideals you pretend to believe in. But Lindsey Graham still proudly, to this day, is like, Guantanamo Bay is awesome. Don't release anybody. Do indefinite detention. Don't even put them in U.S. Supermax prisons. Just keep them locked up over there and don't even think about it. That's his position. Well, again, there's a giant number of people who were locked up, who were totally innocent, didn't do anything wrong, and were wrongly swept up by warlords in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And Lindsey Graham has never said a word acknowledging that or talking about those mistakes. Because again, he's just an authoritarian and he's wrong on this. And he gets all animated and all huffy and all puffy because he's offended that you don't want to be as authoritarian as me. Because he's like, the recidivism rate of the people locked up at Guantanamo was 31%. And then Dick Durbin's like, well, after the Obama era, so the ones Obama released, the recidivism rate was only 5%. And he's like, well, but it was 31%. And he's trying to use that as an argument of like, well, that's why you just perpetually lock them up forever and throw away the key. It is as un-American as you can possibly get to say the Constitution is inconvenient during this wartime, and so ignore it. Because if you ignore the Constitution at the moment you need it the most, you definitely do not believe in the Constitution. It's like with the debate around free speech. Nobody needs free speech to say rainbows are pretty and puppies are cute and apple pie is delicious and mama is awesome. You don't need free speech protections for that. You need free speech for the asshole who's out there saying the most controversial shit. And you go, but no, for him, he doesn't get it. Well, then you don't believe in free speech. You, Lindsey Graham, do not believe in due process, do not believe in the Constitution. You're an authoritarian monster. That's what you are. No different than a fucking tin pot dictator in the developing world that Lindsey Graham would look at and say, look at this barbarian. You're looking in the mirror, dipshit. That's what you're doing. So anyway, the fake theatrics, you know, like, it's one thing if you genuinely get angry, of course. We all do that if you're a public speaker of any degree. But the like fake theatrics. What the left is doing with this war is not working. I'm Lindsey Graham and I'm mad. Shut up. Shut up. You're not fooling anybody. You're not going to have this isn't a viral moment like your Kavanaugh moment. If anything, the only people talking about this are the left to make fun of you. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.